Okay, welcome everybody to the Synapse Philosophy Group, and we're in D.D. Palmer's 1910. We're going to read a little bit from page 58, and then we're going to go over to 68 and 69 and get to know D.D. Palmer better, understand our philosophy like philosophers and chiropractors, and we're going to jam. And I'd like to say, I just want to start off with when we're discussing things, there's no right or wrong. And I want you to feel free. This is a discussion. We open ourselves up, discuss things. And, if you have questions, this is a place to answer them, to get clarity. And it's not condemning other people. Like if someone has something to say, it's their opinion, it's their understanding. We can help bring light to it. But it's also not condemning them for it. We all have our own thoughts and opinions, okay? So, and we all have freedom to express ourselves. I just want to make sure we all understand that. And I might repeat it through the day, through our talks. And at times I might even, remind each other about those things if we become a little bit, aggressive in someone else's opinion. Let's put it in that sense. So I'm going to start right now on page 58, right at the bottom. Second up from the bottom. Impulses are not composed of substance. They are not matter passing through tubes. They are not impeded, hindered, obstructed, or interfered with by the placing of a bone in their pathway. They are transmitted by vibration. The arch or bar, which is set at right angles, and the strings of a violin, guitar, or other stringed instrument, and which serves to make them taut by elongating them, does not prevent the passage of vibration. Neither does the impingement of a nerve by a bone pressure, obstruct. The course of impulses, which are but vibrations, it simply modifies normal vibratory movements. That's pretty important. What do we talk so much about? A kink in the hose, right? It is not pathology, only modified physiology. That's interesting too. Physiological function modified by augmentation or diminution and morbid tissue are pathological. The amount and quality of function is determined by tension. Tension from pressure and pressure from displaced bones. So when we talk about the nerve impulse, what we talk about very often, and he talks about this too in other places, a kink in the hose is an easy way to describe things. But I think we also get caught up in that. We know it is a neurochemical and electrochemical impulse, a lot more than D.D. knew back in those days. What do you guys think? What's on your mind? Don't all talk at once. What's the first thing you get from that? I'm going to read on. How is it possible to restore normal function when so far as we can determine we do not change the position of a vertebra where displacement is supposed to be the cause of disease? Now, D.D. is answering that question. That's a question posed to him. You have assumed wrong premises. The proposition being false, you have arrived at a wrong conclusion. It is not possible to restore normal function without returning the transmitting tissue to its normal tonicity. I think you are wrong in stating that the expression percent can only be applied to substances which are capable of being divided into parts of 100. Why not call the normal amount of mental impulse 100%? Now, D.D. answers that because no one can percent it. It is not percentable. Percent means per 100. 8% means eight of every 100 parts. Mental impulses has no part to base percentage upon. The essential elements of percentage are the base, the rate and the percentage. That's going, you know, a little more esoteric. What do you guys think about that section so far? Right, I'm sure you love it. Move on.
It's about the only the because it goes back to the idea of pinch versus the bones don't pinch the nerve. They change the function to either increase or decrease what's being transmitted, so that it doesn't stop the transmission, but it may change it and make it more or less. And then if you have more or less function, that's what then may cause a change in physiology and then create what we then call pathology. We're not dealing with, what he's saying is, we don't deal with the pathology. We want to restore normal transmission of force, of function through the nerve system by by taking the stress off of the nerve, and it's not a pinch, it's not hard bone on soft nerve, it pinches, which he talked about earlier. It changes the function of the nerve and by increase or decreasing it.
You can change a D string on a guitar to an A by tightening or loosening it, depending on what octave you want to go to.
Changing the tone.
Changing the tone, which is changing the information, right? With the tensegrity models, we know we're talking a lot about when we change that tension in one area, that shifts and changes the tension in other areas, which means the outcome is different than what we expected at the beginning, say from here, from above, down, inside, out. Yeah. Now, when we get back into a little bit more of neurotransmitter, which they didn't know much about then because they didn't have powerful microscopes and those things, there is a fluid system that we know of, you know, neurotransmitter. Steve, you have something?
We also talked, sorry, Steve, go on.
I was wondering, I don't have the book in front of me, and I was wondering what he was saying about the bowstring. Where's the comparison there, or what was he saying about the bowstring on the string, perpendicular?
So not the bowstring, but the bridge.
Right.
The bridge stabilizes, but doesn't change the tone.
Oh, he wasn't talking about the bowstring?
Not the bow. He's talking about the bridge on a guitar or a violin.
Okay.
Which is a placeholder. It's holding tension. So your communication from string to string is consistent, right? So we're holding tension. You have to know a little bit about music, you know, mechanics, I guess, to understand that. But really, that's where, you know, if you think about the vertebra, that's where, because it's not just a nerve and a bone. We know that there's tissue, there's fat, there's, you know, beautiful things in there. So you change that tension even slightly, you do add pressure and tension to that. And so you're changing how that bridge effect is with the nerve. Yeah. Hope that answers your question, Steve.
It does.
All right. I'm gonna jump to page 68. I'm gonna read the most important thing in the entire book. Chiropractors adjust causes instead of treating effects. Okay? Says it right in the middle. He sandwiches it right there. It stands alone, and that's really all that page needs. I think that's an important one. Maybe I'll read a little bit of this. The machine shop is a building where machines are made, where metal is shaped and cutting, turning and filing. Man is a living being because of metabolism, dialysis, and diffusion. A group of processes whereby organs transform foodstuff into tissue elements. There is no similarity between the machine of the machine shop and the organs of the body. So he goes through, this is where another analogies he doesn't like. He doesn't like mechanics relating to this body because our bodies can heal itself. That machine ultimately is working till failure, right? And he mentions that multiple times in this book. I'm going to move on to luxations, page 69. Alan's suggestion, I think it's a very, very good one. Okay?
Dr. Hay, can I say something?
Of course.
Going back to the part that you were talking about, chiropractors adjust causes and not effects.
Yeah.
That's something that I've been actually thinking about, and it's been kind of in my mind because, like, I view the subluxation as a symptom of those thoughts, traumas, and toxins. Then wouldn't the original cause be the thoughts, traumas, and toxins which led to the subluxation in the first place? And by addressing the subluxation, we are addressing a symptom if we're not addressing the thoughts, traumas, and toxins. So if someone, and as like principal docs, most people would say not to address someone's nutrition, which would be the toxin that's causing the subluxation in the first place, or not to address someone's movement pattern, which could be the micro traumas, so the traumas that are causing the subluxation, or thoughts, which could be like emotions, or not to address something like that.
All right. Anybody would like to address that with Junior? Alan,
I think it's in the way we address it. When we start saying that you need so many milligrams of vitamin this and vitamin that, to address it in that educationally limited way is not within our realm.
Okay, I like that.
There's been a long debate among people about whether the subluxation is an effect or a cause, and it's whether it's positive or negative. That does innate make the subluxation, create the subluxation, or is subluxation something that is that innate's not able to correct on our own? And that's been, I know I've talked about this back and forth with lots of folks. It's a great thought process. I think of it as the analogy of, two analogies sort of run together. One is the circuit breaker, where it's something that can't be fixed, and we therefore, the innate can't fix it, so it needs some outside force to come in and flip the circuit breaker back and allow the transmission of the information to be more complete. But the other part of that is, it isn't always a physical change. Even, I've talked to people, I've said things to people, and can see that they change before I even put my hands on them. And I'm sure that some of the other people have had that experience. You may have even had that experience, Junior. Yeah. I don't know. But I don't depend on being able to say something to somebody and correct it, but it happens. You can see a physical change in people sometimes just when you start to get them to express, or when you start to talk to them and have them talk about what. So there's issues that happen that way too. I'm starting to ramble. Sorry.
Well, even when you tell them I love you, you can see that change. Mm-hmm. Now, thoughts, traumas, and toxins are categories of stressors. So, Junior, you and I could eat bacon, and your body's going to take that stress differently than mine because of your age, because of epigenetics, because of all these other things. The nutrition isn't a cause in so much as it's a category of stressors. It could also be argued that the subluxation is preventing the nutrition from actually affecting the system because it existed before. And so if we can decrease the stress by eating properly, moving properly, thinking properly, and take the pressure off the nerve system so that it can function at 100%, nothing more, nothing less, that increases our resilience, our capacity to adapt. So I think of thoughts, traumas, and toxins as these piles of stress. They're just categories of stress. They don't cause anything in and of themselves. They're just categories of stress that we would normally process appropriately unless we're subluxated. So when we get subluxated, those stresses show forth that subluxation that's already there. That's one way we can think about it.
Now, how often are we treating a subluxation? So for me, treating. If I'm the medical, what did he say? The medical warrior. And same thing with subluxation. If I'm the warrior of treating these subluxations, and I don't use the word treatment, okay? So I am only attacking these as subluxations instead of allowing the subluxation to communicate to me. I need this change within me. I adjust that and I walk away. So if we're adjusting, Sigafus used to say, I adjust the bone, God does the healing. Now, how many of you out there have people, you adjust them, they start eating better, their lives change? What else can I do? I feel like $1 million because it's an inside job. It's not an outside job. And if I start thinking about what this guy's thinking about, you're not thinking properly, you're not eating right, you're not doing this right, I'm judging every action of them. I'm a I understand the subluxation. I'm going to adjust it. I'm going to let that body use its own innate intelligence to bring itself back to 100%. There are plenty of techniques out there that use your own consciousness and place that which is fatally flawed because it's coming from educated. I know what's right for you, so I'm going to pre-think it for you. I'm not even going to use the names of the techniques. BJ didn't like them. And we're pre-programming them before we even adjust them. And I think that is coming from our educated first. And I'm judging for that person to be wrong most of the time. If I'm seeing them as 100% right and a child of God, this beautiful thing, and if innate is telling me this subluxation, body right, ASRP, then innate is telling me what they need, not what they want, but what they need. Adjust me back this way because I know how to read that code from innate's communication. We've talked about this 600 times on here. And I love that topic, Junior, and I appreciate it very, very much because it gets complicated. Very often we're trying to think bigger than innate, which is bigger than God. If we think about we're simple things and we're completely empty and blank, a clear and hollow vessel is what we said in chiropractic for 119 years. It's been the past few years that, it's been taught out of people that we have to put a consciousness into something. If we're completely devoid of educated and 100% innate, that change on that person is absolutely astounding. And it doesn't come from us. So often we want to take credit for these things. And I heard it today from a chiropractor. I can't take credit for any of that. I don't know how the heck to heal you. I'm just listening to what your innate needs me to adjust. Those are my 7 cents. As Sigafus used to say, put that in your pipe and smoke it. All right. How's that? Anybody else?
Yeah, there's also in our literature that the educated mind, with an adjustment, the educated mind is like any other organ. When it doesn't getting the proper nutrition, blood, nerve supply, it'll function abnormally. So what we can do in our minds is when we give an adjustment, we're knowing that that educated mind is now working properly and will make decisions, good nutritional, sound, natural food, decisions about its food, its thoughts, and even the way it moves, he or she.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else? Marina, I'm glad you could join us. All right. Now, on this page 69, I have in my notes, I founded I'm reading from here. I founded the science and art of chiropractic on the plan of economy, not on elaboration. The act of replacing vertebra is that of racking it into normal position, those which have been displaced by traumatism or poison. So that's what we're just talking about too. Okay. Subluxated vertebrae are forced out of alignment by accidents and poisons. Please take your spinal column in hand. Remember, chiropractic displacements are fixed, exaggerated lateral movements. Vertical displacements have sufficient, when sufficient to make a complete luxation, are those known and recognized such by the medical profession. A chiropractic luxation is not accompanied by fracture, though while those known and recognized as luxations by the medical profession usually are. That's important. Hey, you got your little man there. Hey, buddy. Awesome. Okay. 7 cervical vertebrae and the first 11 dorsal have lateral and vertical actions of the articular processes and an axial center at the anterior of their bodies, while the last dorsal and the 5 lumbars have vertical action and an axial center on the lateral line of articular processes. All right, that's a lot going on there of visualizing that. Alan, was there any other parts you want to pick out of there?
I went through that part. I see a thing is whatever exists or is conceived to exist as separate entity. An inanimate object is distinct from a living being. Any lifeless object is a thing. Chiropractic is not a thing. It's not an entity, an object, nor is it made of anything material. Chiropractic is a science consisting of knowledge and skill concerning the art of adjusting. Chiropractic is founded on the principle of functions receive their vital force through the nervous system. Skipping down a couple paragraphs, a bone does not pinch upon a nerve. The condition of pressure upon a nerve is known as an impingement. Pinch and impingement are not synonymous. The science of removing the pressure upon spinal nerves has claims upon nearly all chronic and nervous ailments. The science of chiropractic has no claim upon or against any ailment, chronic or acute or nervous. That's a lot of stuff there.
There's a lot there. And I have that marked too, as a bone does not pinch upon a nerve. I like that. The condition of pressure upon a nerve is known as an impingement, which is different. Yeah. Now, okay, thing chiropractic is eventually concurring disease. What do I have here for 71? Why not, as chiropractors, give innate an opportunity to functionate normally instead of trying to conquer disease? See, that's where we're going, exactly what we were just talking about. That's on page 71. I'm not really sure where that is. I have it in my note here, but that's what we were just talking about. Huh?
Think of a chiropractor substantially conquering disease. That expression sounds allopathic. That's what you were saying earlier.
Exactly.
One of the principles of chiropractic is that when impingements are removed, vital energy performs functions normally and will, as far as possible, carry off any surplus deposit of water, gammata, or calculus. Why not, as chiropractors, give innate an opportunity to functionate normally instead of trying to conquer disease? I love that.
Beautiful. That was all of it right there.
That's it, right?
That was nail on the head, and it goes right back to what you were saying, Junior. Hi, Alani. Good to see you. You're getting so big, Alani. 5 years old. Oh my goodness. So that is, he is really hitting it home right there. That page 71 right at the top. Absolutely. I might have to put that as a post really soon. I'm going to put that one on our page.
Can I comment on that just by observation? I think we as chiropractors don't give innate enough credit for what it actually does in the body. We don't realize the power and the importance of releasing innate. We don't think that's a high enough calling, and so we're constantly looking for that credibility from other professions, when what we do is the most powerful healing art in existence today, is releasing the God-given ability of the body to manage itself, heal itself, and defend itself.
You hit it right home there. Absolutely.
Amen. Yeah, we've got lost in the mechanistic, gold standard of clinical trials, and lost what we talked about earlier in this book about the spirituality, the innate intelligence, that is the core of what we do. And I think part of it is fear of what'll they say about us, and part of it is want to get paid by insurance companies, so you have to document it in something that they believe in, rather than if we did what we do, people would be. What was this? There's a story that Jerry Clum and Dick Gregory were on an airplane together, and Jerry Clum explained to Dick Gregory what chiropractic was, and Dick Gregory looked at him and said, "If people knew what you do, you'd have to have they'd be at your door with guns, and they'd never let you close your doors." Dick Gregory's son became a chiropractor and practiced in DC, by the way.
That's awesome. That, and I think part of it too is the fear of being of connecting to the power, something so amazing that we're working directly with God in your body, and in a way it's so humbling, But I think you guys really hit it home just now. Absolutely. And just bringing someone to that understanding within their own body and helping them know that they're more powerful than they've been told is life transforming, And I saw a video of, I think it was Sigafus with Herbert Ross Reaver. He was talking to him, I think it was at Life University or somewhere. And he said, he was practicing up until his 90s or whatever he was. I think he died adjusting someone or whatever. And they said, "Why do you keep going into the office?" He goes, "Because every day I have an opportunity to teach somebody about their own innate." Like, wow, that's just beautiful, and simple. That's when they had school, was probably 18 months when he was in school.
I think if we as practicing chiropractors, those that call ourselves straight, would spend time not worshiping, but meditating on what innate actually does in the body, and then that small part that we play in freeing it up from interference. I think we would just meditate on that every day and think about the part we play in freeing people. I think we'd go a long way to redeeming this profession.
Oh, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think BJ knew that too. And that's why he spent so much time. How many of her volumes was basically talking about getting out of the educated and getting more innate. You're right. You hit the nail on the head. Anyone else?
I just want to, for people who don't know who you referenced, Herbert Ross Reaver, for some of the younger folks on here who may not know who he was the person most jailed for chiropractic, for doing chiropractic. He was the last person that ever went to jail for practicing chiropractic, and I think he was in Louisiana, if I'm not mistaken. And I referenced Dick Gregory, who was a famous comedian a number of years ago.
I tell this story because people don't know this about Ross Reaver, is that he was in a southern town, and I don't know if it was, the minor league baseball teams would come around and he would adjust these guys, and they were Latino baseball players, and he would take care of them. And people didn't like that in his town, and he was beaten with 2x4s, nearly dead, his wife said, and he nearly died. Got up as fast as he could, as soon as he could walk again, opened up his doors, called those baseball players, and started adjusting them again.
I never heard that story. That's great.
He went through a lot, that man, for chiropractic. And his wife, God bless her too, So, we're on the shoulders of giants. We are literally on the shoulders of giants, and that have worked hard so we can just be talking about this, Anyway, anyone else? I'm on now. I think, okay, we have a little bit more time. On 71, down at the bottom, a teacher of chiropractic college says, Dr. Gray, his great work on anatomy has told us that there is a great nerve trunk carrying millions of filaments each. I'm able to find such statements in Gray's anatomy, okay? Gray states nerves are composed of numbers of nerves. All right, he's basically going through Gray's anatomy. After that, as though the disease was intelligently resisting, opposing, or setting in opposition to a system, it is difficult to root out all the superstitions. The superstitions, it's not the disease is happening to you, it's coming through you, I think is what he's getting to. This is in quotes. Here's where pressure on a bone cuts off life force, end of quote. Bone impingement on nerves irritate or depress their action. They do not cut off vital function, or vital action, he said. Quotes again, luxated bones pinch nerves. Pinched nerves cause disease, end quote. Nerves may be impinged upon, pressed against, but do not pinch. Okay. So chiropractic, this in parentheses, is a system of manual therapies by which displaced tissue are brought into normal position. The vitality of the involved cells simultaneously aroused to activity, enabling nature to effect a cure, end quote. This is DD. Chiropractic is not a system of therapeutics. It does not use remedies. The involved cells may be inflamed and too active. The aroused will be excited to action from a state of rest. That's all a little bit wordy, and it's a little bit to comprehend there. Okay. Anybody have anything else?
No, but even though it's wordy and it's hard to comprehend, I actually had that happen to me today on a new client.
Yeah.
Their body was in a state of protection and repair that I wasn't able to affect an adjusting thrust that was going to help. And so we have to be sensitive to what the body's already doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I was speaking to, is we have to be sensitive to those processes already in place. And that's where we get to be doctors.
Well, I'm glad you gave me insight to that. Thank you.
Well, that actually makes the last line on the next page, which says chiropractic is a science adjusting.
Alan,
Chiropractic is a science.
I don't know what you're doing, but you're cutting out the best part.
you got to science.
There he goes. You're cutting in and out.
System keeps going to mute as I'm talking here. I'll hold the space bar. So then what you said.
Alan, you're out.
I'm holding the space bar and and it isn't staying on.
I don't know.
Unless the cord between your mic and the computer's loose.
Is it working now?
Yeah.
It says it is. Well, I'll try one last time.
Nope, it's out.
I got nothing.
Type it in notes. Type it in notes. Type it in the chat.
And that was a message from Nate. All right. It said, shut up. No, I'm just kidding you.
Oh, you're bad.
All right.
Well, I have a second. Read the last line on 72.
Go for it. Oh, last line on 72. I'm doing it. Okay. The chiropractor, the physicians, the physical sign is an evidence of disease. A symptom denotes the change in the patient during disease. Points out its nature and location. Each symptom is not a disease. Chiropractic is a science. Adjusting is an art. Is that what you? Okay, I got it right. Chiropractic is a science. Adjusting is an art. Then what's the philosophy? Well, I love it. We had a lot of good stuff tonight. Okay? Anybody have any input? Fernando, glad you could join us from Mexico.
Thank you. Sorry I couldn't join earlier. But I have a question, and maybe the answer is kind of easy to answer, but I think Didi Palmer, how, well, the question is, how Didi Palmer got all this information on his time? It's very, I have no words for this.
Would anybody like to help him? I mean, what do you guys think?
He didn't have Facebook. He didn't have Twitter. He didn't have cable TV. He didn't have the internet. He had time with books. And also, if you think about the 1860s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, people like Einstein and Tesla and Oppenheimer, and you go down this list of all of these people that changed the world as we knew it after the Civil War, they were great thinkers. There's something changed during the Civil War and created this whole generation of superb thinkers. I also like to think that his time with the bees gave him that the idea of innate is the hive mind, and each cell is its individual bee doing its own thing, and the swarm and the notes that the bees make to communicate with each other gave him this idea that maybe that's how our body worked too. So his experiences, his investigation into magnetic healing, how the body works, Grey's Anatomy just came out. He had all of these major things that people were just invested in, and they had nothing else to do but to read and to think and to talk about it.
And what else? History is very important. There is also in that part of the Midwest of the United States, there is a big spiritual surge. We had the Mormonism, we have Seventh-day Adventists, spiritualism, and which he was part of. There's no way to avoid any of those things. And I feel that whole spiritual consciousness really helped evolve his consciousness in this. He also spent 9 years, he said 9 years before he delivered that adjustment, studying all these things, the nerve systems. He got all the books he possibly could, of medical books, of trying to understand of this message he got from the spiritual realm. He got an inspiration saying, okay, now how am I going to put all this into order? Let's start doing this research. So he worked hard at it. And he didn't have time to waste on Facebook and all these other places like Dwayne said, but there was a lot happening in that part of the world, and that spiritual surge of spirituality, I think, was a big part of it too. That's the way I like to look at things in a spiritual sense. Anybody else? That was really good. Thank you, Fernando. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to end it for tonight. I'm really happy to have, we've got students from many schools and all over the world, and maybe a slightly more advanced than students, like with the little gray hair here. Some of you guys have more gray hair than I do. But you have more hair. That's the other part. But we had an awesome night tonight. Does anybody have any other closing things to express? All right. I love and appreciate you. We'll do this next week. Invite more people. Mason, great to see you, my man. And all you guys. And we will gather again soon. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, too.